our budget.
He went from president back to campaigner.
See, what's so unbelievable is, for example, the Ryan budget. Everyone's vilifying the Ryan budget, saying, oh, what are you going to do to Medicare, those who are eligible for Medicare from 65 to 67? That's a horrible thing. But he's still saying, for example, you can keep Medicare the traditionally way it is. We want to build in a choice, so if you want to take that money and go shopping for your own insurance, you can do that. Just like George Bush said 4 years ago with Social Security. We want to give you a choice of investing a portion of that in the market to grow your money rather than just get it. It's a choice. And then people say, well, look what he's trying to do. He's trying to screw old people.
Right, but here's the problem. I mean, the president and Congress, well, the Republicans have just different goals. You heard the president right there. His goal is not to do away with the deficit and not to balance the budget right now. His goal, he says, is to invest in education and research. So they're not even starting in the same frame of mind. The Republicans say you can't have a really successful, prosperous country for long with these levels of deficit and debt. Look at Greece, and the president doesn't feel that way. So, I mean, this is a non-starter. He's just laid out that the deficit is not his #1 priority.
If we don't think this charm offensive, if we think it's insincere, you can't go anywhere. But let's say there is sincerity in the president's charm offensive to go to Capitol Hill 3 times, lunch with Paul Ryan, lunch with the Democrats, and then lunch with the senators, dinner with the senators. Let's say it's sincere. You know what he could be doing? He knows that Democrats, for the most part, liberal Democrats especially, are not going to be going for entitlement reform, as crazy as that sounds, because it's not sustainable. Maybe he's trying to use the Republicans to say, look, you saw what happened with sequester. They're not budging. So I'm dealing with them to give them a few things they want. I have no choice. So maybe he's going to use the Republicans as leverage against his own caucus.
But see, that's all predicated on he's being sincere. He wants to reach across the aisle. I feel that is not true, and we'll tell you in a moment why it probably is not. But one of the reasons he's launched this charm offensive is because after the sequester, that ended badly for the White House. And then, the cuts, we were told the sky is falling, not so bad. What does the White House do? They canceled the White House tours. We showed you that there's images of the little 6th graders in Iowa pleading with the president to please open the White House to the tour, but instead they canceled it. Well, now this morning, breaking news, the president is considering resuming the White House tours. Why? Clearly because that blew up in their face, too.
Here's the president.
How deeply do they have to furlough their staff, and is it worth it to make sure that we got White House tours if it means that you got a whole bunch of families who are depending on a paycheck who suddenly are seeing a 5 or 10% reduction in their pay? Well, what I'm asking them is, are there ways, for example, for us to accommodate school groups, who may have traveled here with some bake sales? Can we make sure that kids potentially can still come to tour?
Absolutely.
That would be nice. It would be nice if school kids could still see the People's House, the White House, particularly like the kids in Iowa who already had planned a trip. They were looking forward to it, and then it was canceled. I mean, that one did not go. There are, I'm sure, ways to save that $17,000 a week somewhere else in the White House.
Right. But I would like to see receipts from those Iowan kids to make sure it was really bake sales. Also, just keep in mind, too, Steve, to your point, the president had an 18-point advantage when the American people were asked who's better on the economy over Republicans. That's down to 4.
Right, exactly. And the president's poll numbers have tanked as well. And so Ron Fournier from the National Journal was talking to a senior White House official. What's going on with this charm offensive? And this is what the White House official told him confidentially. Said, quote, "This is a joke. We're wasting the president's time and ours. I hope you all in the media are happy because we're doing it for you." So the president not doing things for the people of the United States, but instead doing it for the media, which has always been in his camp.
Is he done?
He's done. It's safe.
You're delusional. If you think the president...
We're idealistic. We're idealistic.
It's a tactic.
No, we're idealistic, and we believe that it has come to. Well, who cares what the motivation is? If it's because he's lost some political capital, or because he wants to. Okay, maybe that's the motivation. But we still believe that it is in earnest.
Right.
That they are actually talking to each other in earnest, and I refuse to believe that senior White House official is saying it's all political.
And watch
theater.
Stephen Hayes. Stephen Hayes is buying the charm offensive. Watch.
I think that this whole thing is a setup. This is all about the 2014 election. This has nothing to do with some kind of a grand bargain. The president hasn't given us much evidence over the course of his 4 years in office that he really wants a grand bargain. This is all about setting up Republicans as the bad guy, as the villain, so he can once again run against them. The media will say, look, he reached out to these nasty Republicans and they just wouldn't listen.
See, that Steve agrees with this Steve.
Right.
Brian's
crushed again.
Mr. Fournier writes, so why exactly this charm offensive? And you're going to be seeing some images of the president shaking everybody's hands because of the drop in his approval rating. He's meeting the Republicans for a trip to Capitol Hill. He had a rare news conference last week. And, of course, he was on with George Stephanopoulos this morning.
Well, that's not going to help. But the other stuff,
it's all optics.
All right, we will see, because the president also knows he can't turn around the economy without entitlement reform. So maybe he wants to use Republicans to say, I had no choice.
All right, let us know what you think.
Let us know
what you think the real reason for this reaching across the aisle is, and if you're as cynical